Okay, this is really exciting. The Holy Spirit knows what He's doing, okay? The period between here and the end of the civilization unit, I don't know if you can see it. Let me do it in darker. Is 434 years. So I did draw it almost to scale. We got 434 years to the end at the time that this happens with the Exodus. So the Exodus is buying the rest of civilization at that point. Okay, notice how important that is. Because what's the story about the Exodus? The Exodus is the story of Israel being formed as a nation. 15 Nisan, 1440 BC is her birthday, which she forgets. That's 15 days after the vernal equinox every year. So just find out what the vernal equinox is, and that counts as day 1. And then the 15th day is her birthday every year, and you can always celebrate it, therefore, on time. All right. Because Israel became a nation then, this very pregnant number here, 434, which is equivalent to 62 weeks, does that ring a bell? 434 years is bought for the end of the time unit. Okay? So notice that just like Abram matured 54 years early, Moses matures 434 years early. So now we're beginning to understand where Daniel 9 is coming from, why God designs the time the way He did. 62 weeks is 434 years. Do your math. That's 364 plus 70. Now you see part of where God's taking it from. All right? So 434 years before the end of the third house of time, the Exodus occurs. And because the Exodus occurs, civilization can go on living. Now, of course, the problem is that once we get here, what is that, 434? We've only got, 490 minus 434. We've only got 56. Hear that? 56. You're going to want to remember that number. 56 years remain. Okay? Moses uses 56, and so does Isaiah 53. Okay? And Psalm 90 and Isaiah 53 use the 56 meter a lot. All right. So 56 years into this period, there's got to be something that happens, or time's going to end. Because, yeah, all right, we've got 434 years here. That means we can bridge it. All right. Let me use the black one because it's going to be hard to see. You got 56 years in here. 56 more years. All right. And that is 950 BC. So something has to happen. See, how do I want to do this? We'll color it in green. Let's see. Can you still see this? Yeah. Something has to happen to justify that 490 by 950 BC. Something with the Jews. Only the Jews now. Because this is based on the Exodus. So by 950 BC, something has to happen. Somebody else has to super mature by that point. Because Moses' countdown starts here. And yeah, Moses matured, but Moses is going to die. He dies, I think it's 120 years old. All right, so somebody between that time and 950 BC, 490 years later after the Exodus, somebody else has to come along. Now, what we find out is that after Moses died, you got Joshua. That's another 50 years. Okay, Moses dies in 1400. And in 1400 BC, he had written his death poem, which was the Song of Moses, which is in Deuteronomy. And he also wrote Psalm 90. Okay, when we get to Psalm 90, you'll see I can prove that he wrote it in 1400 BC. Okay, after that was Joshua, and after that is the Judges, and that's the accounting that Paul uses in Acts 13 to explain how we got these 490 years, how we bridged it. And it was bridged by who? David. So from this point here, in 950 BC, by the time this happens, David was the guy. Israel had rejected God. They voted for Saul instead. So God raised a king to carry the line of Messiah, namely David. And from this point forward, from David forward, David's actually born 400 years after the Exodus, and he becomes king 430 years after the Exodus at Hebron. 7 years after that, he becomes king of all Israel, and then he dies at age 77, as you're going to see in future videos. Okay, I've already done the videos on it, but I'm going to do some more. So by 950 BC, which is when the temple is constructed, and dedicated rather, the temple starts to be constructed in 480 years after the Exodus, which was 20 years prior. No, 10 years prior. So the temple began to be constructed in 960 BC. You see that in 1 Kings 6:1. It's finally finished and dedicated in 950 BC. That gets a 490-year time grant. So that takes you into, if the temple were still standing, that would take you into the next voting period. And this would be 460 BC. You see the interplay between the historical 490 and the time grant due to somebody? Alright, so this whole period here, we'll just fill it in, still use green, okay? This whole period here is what the temple's supposed to cover. Alright, if it had remained standing, it would have gone to 460 BC, which puts you in the voting period, just inside it, the next voting period. But something happens. Israel goes so apostate that in 586 BC, the temple has to be razed. And that's where we get the 70 years between 586 and 516. I'm not drawing this to scale. You got a 70-year period in here in order to restore, so that we can keep time going right here at the 460, to bring it back to where it should have been. And that's what the accounting in Daniel 9 is about. Now, I'm going to stop the video here because I've given you an awful lot of numbers, and I think you might want to take time to either replay the video or reconsider the importance of this period. Remember, it's the period of the Jews. We are now into the second double house, the period for the Jews, and it's supposed to end with Messiah, and it will, as you're going to see. But right now, just consider what you've heard, and then I'll do another video to cover the rest of the time.